Yep, it's one of those videos. Kingdom Hearts has always been one of my favorite franchises, specifically the second game, which has always had fantastic combat and a story that is certainly there. But I'm not here for the story. Today, I'm trying to beat the game to the best of my abilities. Thus, today we're asking the question if you can beat Kingdom Hearts 2 perfectly without taking any damage. Also, you won't be hearing any audio from the game because during this entire run I was watching Hell's Kitchen on my other monitor.
Okay, gold papers, protein, white papers, vegetables. These represent the ingredients that you'll cook with in your next challenge. Got it?
Yes, chef.
The rules are extremely simple. If I get hit, then I have to die and go back to the previous checkpoint. I can use anything else that I want in battle. This includes items, drive forms, magic, what have you. Starting the game against Cypher, we immediately lose, and since there are no save points yet, I just close and reopen the app. And then I do the exact same thing with the first nobody fight. Within the game, there are a few of these fights that you can't really lose, so if you take too much damage, the game will just fade to black. I spend a lot of time doing mail delivery over and over again. I need every advantage that I can get, and I'll be happy to spend a few minutes getting some extra funds if need be. When the time comes to choose a path, I choose Warrior. Warrior gives us access to some nice abilities early on, such as Reaction Boost and Combination Boost. There are a lot of abilities in the game that revolve around taking damage, such as MP, Rage, and Damage Drive. With the Warrior path, we won't get MP Rage until max level, and we get the very useful Berserk Charge at the earliest we can, level 65. During the fight against Twilight Thorn, I had a little trouble trying to dodge his attacks. At one point, I was doing so many combos in the air while he was stunned that I just ended up skipping this entire damage phase entirely. I'm not quite sure what happened here. I think I may have done a little bit too much damage to just completely skip over this phase, but I'm not complaining. During Axel 1, you can actually hear me listen to an AGDQ run of this game to see exactly what this speedrunner does, and I end up doing it first try.
Yeah, so he's going to be hitting the first two as quickly as possible because they won't kind of add to his stagger count, which we'll get into later. He's going to be mashing out a guard there in order to avoid that retaliation that he knew was coming. One more combo, nice. And there it is.
Axel 2, however, is a different story. The worst part about this fight isn't even the burning floor. Obviously, if you stand on it too long, you'll start taking tick damage, but if you're quick, you can avoid it entirely. If you do end up taking damage, though, you have to go through this nobody fight beforehand, and everyone in this room is dangerous. I spent quite a lot of time here and ended up having to play some motivational music for myself to get through it. It took about an hour, but it wasn't too bad. It just took everything properly falling into place to work out. Roxas just doesn't have the proper gameplay feel for me at this point in the game. When we start playing as Sora, I use the first fight as a chance to grind some XP. I also turn off Donald Cure, though I doubt he would have ever used it. Climb the tower, get the outfit, fly to Hollow Bastion, nothing new here. The forms are going to be nice later on, but right now Valor form just kind of sits in the background as a way to deal extra damage until we can level it up at Agrabah. We end up spending a lot of time at the specific portion of Hollow Bastion where you have to block this gate. And no, objective damage doesn't count. Objectives in this game are stupid anyways. We have access to magic right now, but it's not as powerful as it could be. Also, gummy missions don't count either, because the gummy ship fucking sucks. We make it to Beast Castle, and this first real roadblock of the game is this fucking door. There are a lot of things that make this fight really tough. For starters, whenever you get close for damage, he spawns in extra enemies, which are really tough to deal with in a close space like this with no abilities other than guard. In addition to that, there's this release mechanic where you have to remove the Heartless from the door. You have to do this twice to finish the fight, and on the second phase, he unleashes these orbs that can't be blocked in succession. Even worse is that one of the mechanics in this game is that when you die, depending on some of the fights, King Mickey will have a chance to show up and revive you. Obviously, we can't use this mechanic, but it still shows up all the same and just wastes time. If you have never called King Mickey, he'll always have a 100% chance to appear on any of these specific fights. Thankfully, we make it through. The boss of Beast Castle is this invisible thing. It possesses different things in the room, and the second part of the fight has it turned completely invisible. But with clever usage of Beast Limit, which gives invincibility, we make it through. Then we arrive at Land of Dragons, my least favorite world. Most of this world isn't particularly hard, more so just very annoying, at least until Shan Yu. See, whenever you clank an attack with him or guard it, he puts you into this mini tug-of-war scenario where if you win, you can counterattack. Speedrunners like to be in Valor form for this specific section, because you end up chunking a large amount of his health. If this fight was just about blocking his attacks, it would be relatively easy if it weren't for this fucking bird, who just swoops down every now and then and picks you up. Also, I ended up running into this weird glitch where my portrait would change like I took damage, but my health didn't actually decrease. I mean, I'll take what I can get at this point. Olympus has one tough part to it, that being Hades' escape. and holy hell, is it probably the toughest thing in this entire run. I spent about 4 hours total on just this part alone. There are a ton of factors here that could fuck you up, the first being Hades himself. He'll teleport around the stage, shoot fireballs if he's far, and punch if he's close. Not to mention that the enemies here are also super tough and can hit you with relative ease. Luckily, we get access to Orin's limit, Bushido. During the point where there's no enemies, I wait for all of my MP to come back since limits take all of your remaining MP. On the final area, I usually use 2 limits in a row, throwing away every ether that I have. I summarized it pretty well here, but trust me when I say that this part took ages. After Hades' escape, we get a quick fight with Demyx that allows us to finally start using our drive forms here. This leads us to a 2-part fight with Pete, the first part being where we have to defend Meg from these Heartless, the second part being where we have to fight Pete himself. There are a ton of boulders that fall here and make this fight even more tough, but eventually we get through it. I ended up having to go back to Hollow Bastion to pick up a drive recovery, just so I could use Valor form for this fight. During this fight with the Hydra, I use a speedrunning tactic with the new Trinity limit ability. Trinity specifically doesn't do any damage with the first 3 parts of the limit, but the finisher does more damage the more hits you've done. After we use Trinity, it's just a matter of dodging these orbs until we can recover more MP, use Trinity again, and finish Olympus. Once we move to Disney Castle, we get some grinding done and move on to Timeless River. Timeless River is made up of a few very short combat sections, which even in anti-form are still a cakewalk. The fight with Pete isn't very tough now that we have access to the invincible limits, and for our efforts, we not only get the extremely powerful Reflect magic, but also Wisdom form, which lets us do great damage at range for no MP cost. After that, we go to Port Royal. I spent some extra time getting Wisdom form leveled up so we can get Quick Run, the first real movement ability in the game. One glitch with this game is that whenever you change to a place where your party is switched out, the game will revert you to base form, and because it still wants to be fair, you get full drive gauge back. For example, if you are still in Wisdom form and go back to the world map, then come back, you'll have full drive gauge. This works whenever a party member is added as well. Port Royal actually goes over relatively smoothly. The one part I was worried about was the ship battle, but even then we just make clever use of limits to take down the pirates before there's really any problem. Barbossa is an easy fight. Just by freezing him with Blizzard, you can stunlock him. Agrabah is also relatively straightforward here. Besides the end boss giving me a little trouble, there's nothing in particular that was really challenging here. After Agrabah, Twilight Town opens back up. We do one fight here to gain access to both Limit Form and Oathkeeper. Limit Form is a new drive form that grants us insane damage alongside Dodge Roll, the best ability in the game. We go back to Agrabah to fight this mushroom guy. He's supposed to be an endgame challenge, but right now he just helps us grind up Limit and Valor Form quite a bit. Since he keeps regenerating health, we just hit him a bunch with Valor Form and use a bunch of limits for Limit Form. The Cage Heartless fight in Halloween Town gave me a little trouble, but that was just down to my own stupidity. With a little time and patience, we also take down Oogie Boogie and completely skip Pride Lands for a couple reasons.
Hey, editor's note here. I actually wrote this part as I was fighting Oogie Boogie, and God, that fight took so long. I was on it for like 5 hours. You can see in this ending footage right here that even though my battery was low, I didn't even care. I was just so trying my best to win this fight. God, that was probably the worst part of this entire run.
This is originally where I was going to end the video and start work on a part 2, but in editing, it turns out that this video is only up to 8 minutes. So I guess we're just gonna finish the game, because I definitely wanted to delay this video by another 2 weeks. Yay. Tron's World features a light cycle section. It's not too tough, but it is time consuming. After that is a boss fight with Hostile Program, which is my favorite fight in the series by far. We end up making lots of work with Tron's Limit setup. Quick, easy, I love it. Next up is Demyx, a notoriously bad fight. We make use of more speedrunner tactics, using Trinity to take down the water clones and rack up a ton of hits. It takes a little bit, but after a while we take him down. Now all that's left is to get to his save point. Oh. So yeah, right after Demyx is a series of fights with Final Fantasy characters, and if we die here, it's back to before Demyx. Fun stuff. But even that grind is nothing compared to what's ahead of us. If any of you have ever played Kingdom Hearts 2 before, you'll know what I'm talking about. The fight with 1,000 Heartless. This fight is super tough. Enemies will catch you whenever your invulnerability runs out, lasers will hit you if your timing isn't quite right, every soldier will try to swipe at you if you get close. This is probably one of the toughest fights in the game based purely off sheer numbers. To prove I'm not cheating on this challenge, since pretty much all of these enemies drop health orbs and it would be very easy to cheese this, I'll show you the fight in its entirety while I do live commentary.
Alright, so one of the first things that you notice me doing in this fight is I walk up and use a Reflect. This is to bait out any of the snag reaction commands that you see from these lantern guys. And the Reflect is to dissuade the soldier enemies, like they'll hit the Reflect and then immediately bounce off. The follow-up reaction command to snag is this Sparkle Ray that you're seeing on screen. You're going to be seeing a lot of that throughout this entire fight. What Sparkle Ray is, it takes out way more Heartless than the other reaction command, Rising Sun. There's also a chance, I'll probably play a little side clip after this, or like beforehand, but there's also a chance, depending on where they are in the animation, that you go up to snag them and nothing happens and you just get shot by the lasers. That happened to me quite a lot. It was really tough to try and manipulate this one specific lantern. You could always bait them out to do their attack by using Thunder, but I actually got pretty lucky in this fight. Like, if they do this spin attack right here, you could see, if you mistime that jump right there with the lasers, they'll just hit you straight up, and you can't really do much about it. So right here, I go for the snag, and then I immediately pop my elixir. Just because I was running out of MP, and I want to be able to use a reflect every time I jump up for a snag. Right here, I get a little bit greedy. You can see that as the Heartless get a little bit fewer in numbers, I'm not doing it as much, because they're not really as close to me as they should be. As again, you can see a ton of the health orbs dropping, so this is just, I went through and I'm doing the live reaction just to make sure that I didn't actually take any damage. They're starting to fade a little bit in numbers. I accidentally do the Rising Sun command here. You could see that it's not quite as good. It's not safe to land with either, so I just go directly into limit form and then immediately cancel out of it, because I just want the MP back. Rising Sun puts you into a bad situation, because how this fight works is that not all the enemies are loaded at the exact same time, otherwise Sparkle Ray would just decimate them all. But you gotta remember it was on PS2 hardware. So, what the game ends up doing, what the game ends up doing is it tries to put all of them as background, and notice how they don't start moving until I get a little bit closer, because they're not actually, like, physically there. So, what you end up with a lot of times is some enemies just end up out of bounds, and some enemies, are too far away to actually be hit by any of the Sparkle Rays. You can see me use that Thunder there in order to try and catch the Lantern, get him to do the attack that I want so I can snag him. Now, at this point, I'm out of mana or MP, and I'm getting really nervous, so I just go into a Rising Sun, and then I notice how few Heartless there actually are, so I just decide to quick run over here, and I notice that they're making a little bit too fast of a movement over to me, so I make a snap decision, and I use my Mega Elixir, just to get an extra MP and to guarantee that I won't have to do this fight again. Mega Elixirs are very rare. I think that's the only one that you get for free in the story, but I just wanted to guarantee that because I wanted to be extra safe. And I was worried right there that the lasers were going to hit me, because a lot of this fight boils down to just not getting frame trapped, which, as stupid as it sounds, is really something that you gotta end up worrying about. I go into one last Rising Sun here just to kill off any remaining Heartless, and you can see me do a little dance here for the 1000th Heartless. And there you go. I go into limit form specifically just to take him out. I do things a little out of order following the 1K Heartless battle. I take a little bit to decide, but eventually I land on doing Port Royal first, then Halloween Town, in order to get Decisive Pumpkin. Port Royal's boss, Grim Reaper, is tough, mainly due to lack of mechanical skill on my part, but don't tell that to anybody. Once everything fell into place, it was a cakewalk though. Same with the experiment in Halloween Town. Duck Flare is really good. After that, I went to take on Storm Rider and Land of Dragons, and once again, Duck Flare is really stupid good. Xaldin is up next, and despite the bad reputation, I didn't have too tough of a time with him. It was really just about everything falling into place so I could properly take him out. Jafar wasn't even a factor either. Olympus is optional, but I decided to do it regardless. The bonus ability we get from Hades, Magnet Burst, is my favorite finisher in the game, so naturally, I'd love to get it. With all said and done, it's time to move on to the world that never was.
Hey, Josh, what about Pride Lands? Don't you want to go Pride Lands?
Shut the fuck up.
This fight with Roxas is pretty difficult, but we take him to the cleaners. Should have invested in double brains, you fucking moron. After kicking Roxas's ass, we get access to Final Form, and thus Glide. Before Zigbar, I spent some time getting everything ready. I buy 46 ethers because I was tired of being out, and I maxed out pretty much all of my drive forms. Zigbar isn't too much of a challenge, honestly. We just unlock him with Duck Flare, and that's pretty much the fight. Syx is... Yeah. Alright. So we're still going. Yeah. Sure thing. Alrighty then. Let me just speed this up here. Oh, look at that, he's dead. What a surprising surprise. Xemnas Round 1 has this mechanic called Face Down, where your health will slowly tick away until you come to face him on top of this building. Problem is, even if you do so on the first possible frame, it still ticks some damage. Luckily, you could still reflect it. The core fight was really easy. I have no idea why. There's so much stuff here that could just one-shot, and yet it was really easy to not die. Armored Xemnas was easy as well, just spamming Duck Flare. So was the Egg Dragoon. Blue Eyes White Dragon. This guy. This is another relatively easy fight. The only real trouble can come from these missiles, but I found a pretty consistent way to dodge them. Armored Xemnas 2 was just spamming Riku's limit and using ethers. Man, if all these fights are this easy, then surely the final boss will be too. Yeah. So with all that time, did I ever beat Final Xemnas after over 5 hours of attempts? See for yourself.
Oh god, okay. Did I do it? Did I do it? Please, as soon as this cutscene's over and I see my health, please tell me I've done it. I was looking down at my controller, please tell me that I didn't lose any health. Oh! Yeah, baby! Oh my god.
Thank you all for watching. This challenge was very difficult in some places, but I absolutely loved doing it. Even the parts I didn't think were very fun, I still enjoyed overcoming. In-game time was 16 hours, 6 minutes. All of my footage, plus 2 hours of off-screen grinding, totaled to a whopping 44 hours. Almost 4 full days spanned over the course of 2 months. All of my footage doesn't even fit into one Premiere file. Once again, thank you all for watching, and I will see you all in the future.